Hello, I'm Dalton Delan. I'm a columnist for the Berkshire Eagle, and this is Eagle Reels, where we take you beyond the news. My very special guest today, George Gilder, noted economist. Welcome, George.
Well, glad to be here.
Thank you. And fellow columnist, Bill Schmick for the Berkshire Eagle. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, both of you. These are trying.
And I started at the Berkshire Eagle.
Yes,
My first
thank you very
job was
much.
a reporter for the Berkshire Eagle, sitting across from Ruth Bass.
Unbelievable.
She was then Ruth Haskins, and Milton Bass was a desk across the way. And I kind of liked Ruth, but Milton had more clout.
Well, you've come a long way. You've come a long way, and thank you for remembering your beginnings.
Yeah.
George, let me start with you because of the times that we're in, and you were an early supply side economist and Laffer curve. You did a lot to popularize that idea.
I wrote Ronald Reagan's favorite book, Wealth and Poverty,
Correct.
Which when Bob Dole visited him in the hospital after Reagan was shot, Reagan gave Bob Dole my book and told him to read it. And Dole was a little skeptical, but Wealth and Poverty was a vast worldwide bestseller back at the time of the Reagan administration. He handed it out to all his cabinet, and it was kind of an inspirational text for supply side economics and the Reagan economic agenda.
Well, so that's a perfect segue for us. The traditional GOP economics, Reagan on, in one sense, they seem to be upturned in a lot of areas right now. We'll get to tariffs in a moment. But in terms of lower tax rates for corporations and for high net worth individuals, the theory...
Across the board.
I mean,
we want a flat tax, actually, was the Laffer prescription. And he's still advocating it. He's still going strong, Art.
Well, your thoughts then on the current play, let's say, in Washington on taxes. Does it conform? Is it good? Give us your analysis.
It's chaos, and we'll see what comes out of the chaos. I mean, I don't pay an awful lot of attention to what Trump does. I mean, he's full of art of the deal. If you read his book, you realize you shouldn't believe anything he says because he's always bluffing and blustering and trying to intimidate his opposition or lure his opposition into some untenable position. So I don't really know what they believe. I do think that Trump genuinely believes that a trade surplus is national strength and a trade gap is some sort of deleterious debt, and this is just ignorant. So Elon Musk said it well about Peter Navarro, Trump's
because dumb as a pile of bricks, I believe.
Dumb as a pile of bricks. Yeah. In any case, a trade deficit means an investment surplus, and I believe that it's a lot easier to buy a stock or buy a bond than it is to actually create new productive capacity that can generate a trade surplus, so that the trade investment leads consumer demand. In other words, investment comes first. It's easier. And it can come from all around the world, particularly if you're printing dollars promiscuously as we are, with $36 trillion of debt. So I don't think that the economics prevailing in Washington is especially good, but I do like the general direction of lower tax rates, less tentacles of the administrative state, and I just love the renunciation of the totally bogus science of climate change. I actually know about climate change. I've worked with the greatest physicists and atmospheric experts of our time, Richard Lindzen, Art Robinson, Feynman, Freeman Dyson, all these people who actually know the subject and got Nobel laureates. John Clauser just got a Nobel laureate. They all say we probably don't have enough carbon dioxide. Okay. Carbon dioxide feeds plants. It overcomes deserts. It enriches our agriculture. The idea that reducing CO2 emissions is some positive goal is just is what I call emergency socialism. You declare an emergency and then you exercise government power to nullify the actual interests and desires of the citizens. So that's supply side economics.
Thank you. Well, Bill, you spent decades and you advise our readers. How is all this playing out for our readers, for our viewers here as well? Where do you think we're going right now with the policies that we're seeing?
Well, the policies that we're seeing now, and by the way, George, I kind of agree with most of what you just said. Okay, the policies that we have right now are chaotic.
You're using the same word.
Yes.
So
okay.
This is our chaos podcast.
And so did the Fed just yesterday or the day before. But in a way, we're missing the forest for the tree by focusing on this administration or Trump.
Okay, thank you. Well,
I don't think Trump
that.
is either the modern day Hitler nor the coming of the Lord. Okay, and it seems as if the country has decided for or against that. Okay. I don't believe that. I believe that, and you've heard, and I've written about my belief that we're in an era of populism, okay? And that era of populism, we've got many of them in the history of the United States, and we're just beginning another one, okay? So I think that in that populist era that we're dealing with, we should be looking at what the American people are wanting and demanding, whether that's right or wrong, okay? I'm not saying either. It's just that over the last 40 years, we have become, as a people, dissatisfied, distrustful, and everybody in this room would agree to me that we would like to see change in both the economic and political system, okay? We know that. We all do. The problem that we all have is we all have an idea of what that change should be. George, I'm sure that you could spend the next hour and a half telling us what you think that change should be, and so would you, and so would I. So already, with only 90 days into this administration, and we all admit that within this chaos, there has been an enormous amount of change. We may agree with some of it, we may disagree with some of it, but change is difficult for us as a people, okay? It wasn't always the case, but right now in this generation that's coming to power, they demand change. And you can read and see that some people agree with it, some people don't. And this change is going to create, in an economic point of view, a lot of mistakes, okay? I agree that the Defense Department should not be paying $500 for a toilet seat, okay? I agree with that, all right? And I agree with the government is too big. But my God, leave the veterans alone. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, we're in the midst of this, and I think this is going to continue. Whether the Trump administration is successful in doing this or not we'll just have to wait and see. But this is the beginning of change. And I think our job at our age, we the baby boomers and such, who've created the mess that we're in, we have a job to do, and that job is, if we can, to nudge the generation that's coming into power today into doing less mistakes and more success. Okay?
Well, let me, Bill, this is for both of you, because I believe you're both Marine Corps vets, correct?
Yes.
So among the federal workers laid off in the midst of this change and shrinking of some of government, 1/3 of federal workers are vets. I'd just like a moment from each of you, your thoughts on that. Are you able to subjugate that, or you know, how do you feel about that aspect of what's going on, if I may? I'll start with you, George.
I mean, vets are great. However, they've had nice jobs in the federal government, and maybe a good many of them will end. And this is not a big, shocking change. So I think that's a distraction.
Okay.
I mean, we're trying to divide the people into all these various groups that have special interests in some federal program, and that is a distraction from the real source of our wealth and jobs and prospects, which is the entrepreneurial private sector of America. And if it's hamstrung by an administrative state that has essentially stifled initial public offerings, you know, new companies forming and going public. This used to be a fundamental possibility in America, and now, as Peter Thiel puts it, to go public is to become nationalized, and you have to submit to so many regulations that people just don't go public. Companies don't go public until they're really over the hill these days. So the public gets to buy companies that are over the hill, and private equity and venture capital, and get all the big new opportunities. So I think there are real issues, but I don't think this condition of veterans in America is
special interest.
I mean, my father lost his life in the Second World War. I never knew him as a result, and I spent my time in the Marine Corps Reserve for 6 years, creeping around Onoda Lake, doing maneuvers in the reserves. I never went to any kind of combat.
Okay.
Did you? Were you?
Well,
yes.
Yeah, I will just ask you
Where
that.
were you at?
Vietnam.
Oh, Vietnam.
Two
all right.
tours. I went back.
2 tours.
Yes, I
wow.
was.
So you're a real veteran. I'm a bogus veteran. What's your view on this?
I agree in some respects it's a distraction. I mean, and we talked about the changes. We all want changes except for the veterans, except for the teachers, except for that's the problem. But veterans overall, many veterans seek the government because they've served their country. They love their country. And they want to continue to serve it. And so they're attracted to government for that reason. And I think they do a really good job. I go to the Veterans Organization in Leeds for eyes and vision and hearing. And their service there is much better than my private service person.
Is that right?
Oh, yes. And I can't say too much about it. I'm saddened that that's the case.
Sure.
Okay, I am.
So is that in jeopardy, the service you get?
Well, we've seen the chaos of letting go of all the probationer how many thousands of probation veteran employees, and then rehiring them. And we're going to continue to do these things, whether it's for teachers or veterans or whatever, because you can't have change without breaking a couple of eggs.
Well, let me go back to the change moment that you referenced with Peter Navarro and the tariffs, and the theory, forgetting the tariff theory, the idea of bringing back manufacturing. And I know you have you've written a lot on this, the information age. How real is this idea that it's manufacturing that will come back, or is that even, I think you touched on this before, but give us a little bit on, is that even what we're looking for?
I don't know. The United States is second only to China in manufacturing in the world. China has 4 times as many people, 9 times as many engineers, 15 times many STEM graduates. And we can't go back to manufacturing. That whole image of somehow going back to some lost era is futile and a distraction. The fact is that this whole idea that the U.S. is somehow a victim of the global economy is just utter nonsense. I mean, we have 70% of global market cap, almost, our companies. 70%. And we're, what, 5% of world population? I don't know. I mean, we're in an age of superabundance. I mean, most of the economic data you read and that preoccupies Washington is bogus. I've got a book. I introduced a book called Superabundance and wrote a book called Life After Capitalism, all about the amazing abundance in which we live. I mean, I did a piece in the Wall Street Journal 2 weeks ago. I don't know whether you saw it. I read it. But it's on time prices. I know. And it shows that judged by the amount of time a typical worker has to spend to earn goods and services, we're in an era of superabundance. And the William Nordhaus of Yale essentially invented and popularized time prices. And time prices is the amount of time a typical worker has to spend to earn his food and clothing and goods and services that define his possibilities. And measured by time prices, this is an era of superabundance. This book, Superabundance, is won prizes and is really a revolution in economics that William Nordhaus started.
And I recommend that people read your op-ed in the journal. They should seek
that
out.
was about 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah. Well, you know, superabundance, George, you're right. It is but there are many people in this country who don't share that view and don't believe that they participated either in the political or the economic system in this society of superabundance. I have certainly participated in it, and you have too. And we've been rewarded deeply by doing so. But in the meantime, the income inequality in this country has widened. I'm not going to say how much, historical, whatever, but there's a vast number of people who feel that they've been left out of our superabundance. And I think that that is the key, that economic dissatisfaction is the key to why we're in this period of populism. And so it behooves us as, what do you call them, leaders, old leaders, gray-haired leaders, that we understand that. And that we understand that something has to be done in this country for this income inequality to sort of be, lessened. And whether that's by switching from a government period where the government spending and government presence in the economy is reduced and that the private sector comes back, if that is what it is going to take in order for income inequality in this country to lessen, so be it. But we all know that that's not something that's going to happen in the next 2 to 4 years. It took 40 years of government spending and growth, and I'm not saying that that was wrong. That's what we baby boomers, a whole generation, that's what we did, okay? And we benefited from it, and yet there are generations behind us that haven't.
Well, Bill, the other hot button now, particularly for your readers, Social Security.
Yes.
And I'll ask you both, but starting with you, how should our readers feel? Is this a valid concern for those getting or about to get Social Security? We could talk elsewise about next generations. I don't think we'll have the time today, but
Social Security,
for your readers now.
For those who are getting Social Security right now, I don't think should be a worry. For those approaching Social Security and for the younger generations, yes, there will be a concern, I believe, somehow or other, whether if the age is increased, whatever occurs, okay, it seems as if that's going to be a necessary ingredient to the change we're talking about, okay, because it's an entitlement. And between that and Medicare, which by the way, I think are both great, okay, but they're unsustainable as it stands now.
Yeah, thank you. George, for you, thank you. I was going to broaden it to that. And of course, Medicaid, which some people would say is under attack, perhaps under change. Your general thought about these entitlements, where they're going, and whether they validly need reform.
Well, we've kind of debauched our medical care and public health systems. There are so many of them, and they multiply, and they're complicated, and they no longer succeed in extending our lifespans. The one amid a world of superabundance, the one available resource that is actually contracting in some ways is time. We aren't living as long as we did before, and there's something radically wrong with a healthcare system that demands more and more resources and delivers less and less longevity. That's a fundamental contradiction in our system, and I think this, the whole COVID episode epitomized it, where it now turns out that excess deaths actually increased among the vaccinated. It was kind of a test case, and our health care system just completely botched COVID. The politicians took more power, actually make you wear a mask, which doesn't do any good. And, they just, everything they did around COVID, including helping start it in Wuhan and China, was a blunder of our healthcare system. And so we really do need reform, and if everybody digs in and supports every little niche of special interest that prevails in our current government, we won't succeed. That's why Elon Musk has sort of been breaking things. He's gone in a day or two now, back to his 6 companies, and
we
he can probably do more, accomplish more outside of the government.
We probably can and should do a future show just on healthcare, but I think for our final main theme that we have time for this morning, artificial intelligence, and particularly, we're taping today at Taconic High School. This generation is going to be dealing with AI's dramatic effect on the workplace, on everything you do. So thoughts from each of you on, again, you've written a lot about information in general, but artificial intelligence, what should people be thinking is going to come down the line? How will this transform our lives? I know it's a big subject, so just in a nutshell, each of your thoughts.
It'll increase the number of jobs and the productivity of every job.
So the fear that it's going to take jobs, you would say wrong.
All right, did computers take jobs, or did they proliferate jobs and opportunities and create new wealth? This is just another computer platform. The confusion comes from the leading inventors of it who imagine they're creating some new singularity. Ray Kurzweil lives in Richmond a lot of the time. He's a great friend of mine, and I admire him tremendously. But this and his singularity notion, I believe, is not correct. That what new computer technologies do is produce distributed multiplicity, not a singularity. We aren't creating a new God in the sky that's going to take all our jobs and reduce us to peons. We're opening new opportunities for individuals to create new wealth. And that's what AI is about.
That's wonderful. And Bill?
I think I agree with all of that. The challenge will be, yes, there'll be job losses, there'll be job gains. And the challenge to this country...
So what else is new?
That's right. And the challenge to this country is to be prepared for that. Okay, be prepared, a population for the opportunities in the new jobs, okay, and draw the people who will be losing their jobs in. It's the same thing. I mean, this is no change, okay? If for whatever the reason we decide that we want less fossil fuel, okay, and yet the family of four in Pennsylvania lives and breathes that. That's their job.
We all do.
Right, we all do, okay? You've seen Landsman. Anyway, oh, you should see the TV show The Landsman. Anyway, the point is this: if we want less fossil fuel burning and more of something else, then we've got to figure a way of getting that family of four to move that way in education, in whatever it takes. Okay, but we don't do that. We just, those against fossil fuels says we got to stop it, when there's millions of Americans and international people who depend on their livelihoods for the production of that.
So if there's one, to take us out of this today, if there's been one theme that seems to have underlined a lot of this, it's the counterintuitive that much that we're hearing, is wrong, maybe 180 degrees wrong. It's the usual spin. My column is the unspin room. This is what we try to do.
Yes.
I'll give each of you just a moment for your magic 8-ball. What, if there's one thing you'd like our readers and viewers to be thinking about related to our conversation today, what would that one thing be, Bill, and then George?
One thing that your readers...
What should we be thinking about?
Yes. Be prepared
today
for another 5 to 8 years of conflict and stress. We've begun it, but we're not anywhere close to it, okay? I do believe and have faith in the American economy and political system that over and after that period, sometime in the 2030s, we will come out the other side, okay? But this is a problem, and we are dealing with it, just beginning. And we have to have patience, okay? And we have to get people to guide us through this. And the more that we work together in accepting that this change isn't going to be backward looking, but forward looking, the more we can have patience with that, then the better off we'll be as a country.
Don't sell your stocks, don't move to Canada.
Right.
George, last thoughts.
I think we're in an era of unique superabundance and opportunity, and we should understand this and not get depressed by what the columnists in the Eagle say about the climate, or about fossil fuels, or about inequality, or all these supposed afflictions that are always with us, but not always with us is an absolutely unique era of opportunity and possibility, epitomized in part by artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence is based on all sorts of other technologies that I read about, like I'm writing a book about the end of chips now. I've been writing about microchips for 40, 50 years, and we're going to an era beyond chips called wafer scale integration on graphene, and it's going to be as big a change as the current epoch of artificial intelligence. And
well, rather than Kurzweil's singularity, what you've done today, I hope for our readers and viewers, as you have for me, is remind us that the dire warnings and the Chicken Little is not to be believed, and don't lose faith. And I think that optimistic message is one we can really use hearing right now. I want to really thank you, George Gilder, Bill Schmick, for a fantastic conversation we could have, and I hope we'll have more of these in the future. Thank you for appearing with us today.
Thank you.
For taking
Thanks
the
for
time.
having us.
Thank you for having it. It's great.
I'm Dalton Delan. Viewers, if you're already a subscriber to the Berkshire Eagle, thank you so much. If you're not yet, please consider becoming one.
Yep.
It is how we have these sorts of conversations. It's how we read these sorts of writings. I'll see you next time on Eagle Reels and the pages of the Berkshire Eagle.